Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about top 10 worst Xbox One games. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. A good top 10 list is something that everyone enjoys, particularly when it comes to video games. After all, who doesn't want to see the best of something? People take pride in the positive stuff in life. And seeing one of your all-time favorite games pop up, or getting the inside scoop on what your next major gaming investment might be, is reassuring. But every now and then, we have to flip the script. We just need to see the worst of people and situations from time to time. And the Xbox One happens to have a lot to do in this regard. There's just as much benefit in learning about the worst choices we could possibly make, whether it's to keep ourselves warned away from a bad purchase, or to commiserate with those who have shared our pain through a terrible title. Keep watching to see the 10 worst Xbox One games ever released. Number 10. Professional Farmer 2017. The farming simulator craze had been thoroughly cashed in by the time 2017 rolled around, but that didn't stop the good people at Visual Imagination Software from trying their hand at it. Unfortunately, they could have done with putting a little more thought into it. Skilled Farmer 2017 is, ironically, about as far away from a professional quality game as you can get. In a nutshell, it fails to evolve, or build upon the precedents set by the many superior games in its genre, instead settling for a badly imitated gameplay loop that will completely destroy your interest in the span of an hour. Number 9. R.B.I. Baseball 18. It is almost always a safe bet to develop a sports game. So long as you offer a fun and engaging gaming experience, you'll have a rabidly loyal fanbase virtually built in. Given the scope of this list, the fact that we're still talking about R.B.I. Baseball 18 should be a clear indication of where we're heading. Although it did make some significant graphical changes over its predecessors, the new R.B.I. Baseball still appears to suffer from the same flaws that have become a series staple at this stage. This is one title that baseball fans can avoid due to clumsy controls, hilariously bad graphics, and gameplay depth that is no deeper than a roadside puddle. Number 8. Giana Sisters, Dream Runners. The great Giana Sisters series started out as a cheap, gender-swapped copy of Mario Brothers in 1987, but it managed to build a cult following nonetheless. More than 2 decades later, it would be reintroduced to the public with a couple of Nintendo DS releases, before being fully revitalized with Twisted Dreams in 2012. Unfortunately, Dream Runners will completely derail the momentum. It was published as a competitive multiplayer-focused platformer, and if there's one thing that all of the reviews agree on, it's that the design was absolutely brilliant. Unfortunately, it's plagued by technological glitches and oversights, and the game's frustratingly underpopulated. Multiplayer makes finding people to play with a chore. Number 7. Gene Rain. Gene Rain literally takes the gameplay mechanics of a 10-year-old Gears of War game, sprays it with some shockingly generic sci-fi aesthetics, and calls it a day. If it had been published at that time, it could have been described as a dull but serviceable Gears of War clone. However, this was released in 2018. The graphics aren't bad, but they seem to be a little out of date for such a new game. The animations and collision detection are blocky and unsettling, and they'll shatter any semblance of immersion that the stiff voice acting and hilariously nonsensical plot haven't already shattered. Number 6. Ghostbusters. Video games based on movies don't always have a strong track record, as they're usually made as a cash grab to capitalize on the excitement around a major film release. With all the subtlety of a sledgehammer, 2016's Ghostbusters manages to bring this point home. One of the main issues is going into it knowing that making a fun and casual twin-stick shooter experience isn't all that difficult, particularly when 4-player cooperative play is included. All you have to do is keep the worlds exciting, add some interesting characters, and stop pricing it at $50 when it first comes out. None of these items were done by the Ghostbusters. Number 5. Crimson Keep. Crimson Keep is an unusual duck that, like a few others on this list, carved out a niche for itself and ran on a solid premise. Roguelike games are virtually eternal, and this one has a cute, self-aware style that gives it a lot of promise. The issue, as usual, is that it is unable to keep the promise. It definitely delivers in terms of complexity, but for a game that touts its procedurally produced content as endlessly replayable, making the fighting that makes up the core gameplay loop amount to more than a boring and repetitive affair in which you'll see every possible variant over 2 sessions will go a long way. Number 4. Soda Drinker Pro. It seems odd to include Soda Drinker Pro here, because it wasn't meant to be a fun game in the first place. All about it is terribly evil, and it is well conscious of this. That's pretty much the whole point. However, rules are rules, and it is actually one of the worst reviewed Xbox One games, according to Metacritic. Soda Drinker Pro is a game where you, well, drink soda. It's a futuristic, surreal experience that lies somewhere between LSD, Dream Emulator and Goat Simulator. It's worth a few minutes if you want to laugh and see something completely bizarre. It probably doesn't need to be mentioned, but if you're looking for a serious gaming experience, you'll be sorely disappointed. Number 3, Rockin' Racing Off-Road DX. A basic arcade-style racing game doesn't have to get much right. It doesn't have to be Mario Kart. It just has to be entertaining enough for a few people to sit and play for an hour or two before going about their business. Unfortunately, this would necessitate Rockin' Racing Off-Road DX being playable for an hour first. It got a lot of things wrong for the little it wanted to get right. The tracks are unremarkable, with little variation beyond their general form, and the visuals don't go any further than that. When you add in the vehicle's frustratingly clunky handling, you have a recipe for a fast deletion. Number 2, The Inner Fighter. The Xbox One needed a cheap, gimmicky vehicle for its notoriously flawed Kinect motion controller, and the fighter inside was the ideal game for the job. It would have helped if the game had been good enough to portray the Kinect in even the most positive light possible, though it did have a guy in a kilt. The Kinect controls are so ridiculous and disconnected from the game's actual gameplay, that just playing it is a strange combination of uncomfortable hilarity and utter frustration. Even without the Kinect, the dull, poorly choreographed animations and airy, unsatisfying gameplay are enough to put this game out of its misery. Number 1, Rugby 15. Outside of the holy trinity of football, baseball, and basketball, sports games have a difficult time gaining traction in the market, but it's not impossible. Rugby fans, sadly, have it worse than others, and Rugby 15 did a great job of illustrating that. One of the main issues is how poorly Rugby 15 translates the sport into a video game, particularly given how complicated the sport is already for non-experts. Even for those who are familiar with the sport, some of the design choices are perplexing. We're not spoiled by the game's overabundance of bugs and glitches. What do you think about this video? Let us know down in the comment section below. Be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.